Welcome to APCUG's Wednesday workshop, where we get together in the middle of the week to learn more about technology. We have a very unique technology presentation today, given by somebody who I would have to say is an authority, because the topic that he's presenting, he has gone through it himself. So we'll know that what he's telling us is that. Our guest today, presenter, is Gabe Goldberg. Gabe Goldberg is from the Washington, D.C., Virginia area. He's also an APCUG advisor for Region 2, but today he's here with us as a Speakers Bureau presenter. So, Gabe, we're going to turn things over to you. And he's going to talk to us about buying hearing aids, which is something probably all of us are thinking about.
I'm trying to get rid of, there it goes. Thanks for the introduction. This is obviously a popular topic because by happenstance, I'm giving this talk 3 times in the next 2 weeks. So there's something about this talk that is attractive to people. Very brief introduction. First, about me. I spent a career in information technology, then freelance technology writing, editing, consulting. I'm mostly retired, but I do enough work every year so I can actually deny being retired. I didn't spend any time working in noisy workplaces. I didn't go to very many noisy concerts, but I'm still cranky about noise. My wife can testify to that, and it actually goes back quite a long way. My first job at IBM, when I was a relatively low-ranking employee, the perks that I was entitled to did not include an office door, but by coincidence, the room I was in had a door, and when they reorganized and I got moved to another office, the door followed me. And that was interesting because I wasn't entitled to the door. So I poked around and it turned out that somehow in my file, there was a notation that I didn't like noise, that noise bothered me. So all I can think of is that at one point, maybe there were people having a party out in the hall and I yelled, "Be quiet," and somebody wrote that down. So I'm sensitive to noise and I appreciate what the hearing aids can do for me. For many years, as part of my routine annual physical, I had a hearing test, and I saw the usual pattern. I could look at the graphs, I could look at the frequency response, and I could see where the hearing was diminishing in the upper ranges. And the people administering the tests would say year after year, not quite, not ready yet for hearing aids. And then at one point somebody said, "Okay, now it's time. Go look at hearing aids." My story starts about 2.5 years ago, which is just when the over-the-counter, the direct-to-consumer devices were becoming available. So I really didn't have a chance to research those, and this talk really doesn't talk about the kinds of things that you can buy yourselves without a provider. Most important thing to remember, whether you're buying the traditional kind of hearing aids that I have or whether you're doing over the counter, it's a very complex decision. I mean, if you've ever stood in a grocery store looking at the cereal aisle that extends over the horizon, this decision is comparable to that because there are many different issues to look at, and not in any particular order. The cost of devices, how insurance will cover them, the style of the devices. There are many different variations of a wearable style, the technology that they provide, who will you acquire your hearing aids from, and what kind of services do you want to get along with the hearing aids. A strong recommendation is whether you're going to do the over-the-counter, whether you're going to go with a provider and go through the full treatment, get a medical exam. If you haven't had a complete ear exam, do the medical exam just as preparation. And from every hearing test, you should get an audiogram that shows the frequency response of your ears. And that's really what you need to look at to decide when to think about hearing aids, even what kind of hearing aids to get. It's a very rapidly evolving marketplace. As I said, 2.5 years ago, over-the-counter really was not available. Since in the 2.5 years that I've had my hearing aids, there have been new models introduced by the brand that I have and by other brands. It's a moving target. So when you begin shopping, make sure that you have current information. And there's plenty of information out there. In the DC area, there's Consumer Checkbook. Everybody has Consumer Reports. Get recommendations from friends, what they have looked at, what they've tried, what worked, what didn't. Pay attention to advertising. And normally I would say tune out advertising, but seeing an ad in a magazine saved me about $2,500. And I'll talk about that later. There are many credible websites to look at, and one of them is Dr. Cliff Olson has many recordings on YouTube talking about the process of evaluating and buying hearing aids. The other place that I list there is the Northern Virginia Resource Center for Deaf, and I'm sure that in many areas there are similar resources. Evaluate multiple providers and include in that list Costco, and I'll talk about the different providers that I looked at. Pay attention to where they are, because unless you're doing over the counter, you will have and you will need ongoing services. You'll go back to your provider every once in a while. There are different levels of credentials that hearing aid providers have. The most advanced is an ENT, ear, nose, throat, MD. The next is the doctor of audiology, who have done 4 years of study post-college. And the least trained is the licensed hearing aid provider. And I'm not saying anything negative about the last one, the licensed hearing aid provider, but you just don't get the same level of expertise and you don't get the same level of service that you might get from the doctor of audiology. A strong recommendation is not to buy the first devices that you try, and don't buy from the first place that you visit, even if you'll eventually go back. Comparison shop, look at other providers, look at other devices. It's really like buying a car. Sometimes a provider will pressure you and tell you you really should just buy the ones that you've got in your ears right now that you're evaluating. And the answer is don't do that. The answer is do some more research and maybe go back to the first provider and maybe not. Hearing aids are unique, just like your fingerprint. Your frequency response on the audiogram is one set of information, but your ear physiology is another factor, and how your brain processes sounds is another factor. Many different form factors, many different shapes and styles of devices, ranging from behind the ear, open fit in the ear, in the canal, completely in the canal. And that's a matter of personal taste and a matter of what matches your hearing needs specifically. A big choice is whether to have rechargeable hearing aids or one that takes batteries. I went the rechargeable because I just didn't want to have to fool around changing the batteries in the hearing aids every several days. And it's easy enough to take the hearing aids out at night, put them in the charger, and find them fully charged and ready to go the next day. Because it's such a complicated process, take notes as you talk to different providers, as you look at different resources online, so that after you've had a number of different choices that you've evaluated, you need to have notes to recap what you've been through. Try hearing aids on site, and if it's available, take a loaner. One of the things that I wanted to do when I was evaluating the hearing aids, my car makes all sorts of alarms and alerts sounds. And one of the times that I was wearing the hearing aids in the office, I asked the provider if I could go down to my car and have the car make all of its usual sounds so that I could see how the sounds were different with and without the hearing aids. And whatever hearing aids you're going to buy, make sure you understand their operation, because even though these are very small devices, they're very, very complicated. My experience in shopping for these, the first place that I went was a very convenient, very pleasant setting. I talked to a great ear, nose, throat MD. There was a great doctor of audiology. It was clear that whatever I bought there would come with full lifetime service. They were expensive. My insurance, my Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance would pay $2,500. The pair of hearing aids that I was looking at, the list price was somewhere between $4,000 and $7,000. And that was right around the time when an even more expensive, more advanced style of hearing aids had just been introduced called earlens. And those were $12,000. And at the time, they were not covered by insurance. And the difference that they provided is that they were very, very small, and they actually had to be inserted in your ear by the MD because they go right up against the eardrum. And so a number of factors just motivated me not to go with earlens. One was that they were brand new. They had just been introduced. One was the need to have the doctor put the hearing aids in my ears. And certainly the $12,000 no insurance was a major factor. As I mentioned, I saw an ad for an organization called True Hearing, and I still don't fully understand how True Hearing works, but it's basically a referral service for acquiring hearing aids. It doesn't work with all insurance, and all you have to do is call True Hearing, and they will refer you to a provider near you. And just by coming through the door, having been referred by True Hearing, there's a tremendous savings in the cost of the hearing aids. So I found they pointed me to a very nearby office, and I was very unimpressed. It was a dumpy office. It was just minimal. There was a terrible follow-up. They were only offering one brand of hearing aid, and this was a licensed hearing aid provider, not a doctor of audiology. So I called True Hearing again, and I said, try again. And they were perfectly happy to point me to another office, which was not quite as convenient, but it provided the professionalism of the first place with the savings of the second place. So I bought the top of the line Oticon, the Oticon One hearing aids, and between the $2,500 insurance coverage and the $2,500 True Hearing discount, I paid about $2,000 for the $7,000 list price hearing aids. A very minor compromise is that instead of lifetime service, they only provide 1 year of service. But I go in twice a year now and pay $65 for a visit. And it will take a very long time for $65 a visit to equal what I saved just coming in through True Hearing. The hearing center that I worked with was Alexandria Hearing, the Walker Lane location. I was very pleased with very elaborate, very comprehensive pre-purchase discussions before I had signed anything, before I had spent any money. I probably spent several hours talking to them both in the office and then on the telephone before I made the decision. They went through very comprehensive discussion of what my options were, what my services would be, what the costs would be. There was great delivery and usage instructions. They've been extremely responsive to follow-up questions, and they've been very helpful pairing the hearing aids with my iPhone and iPad. I'll just take a short technology digression. As I said, my background is information technology. My career started when IBM mainframe computers filled a room. When I bought my first mobile device, the iPad, maybe 12 years ago, It was astonishing, the technology that had been crammed into that very small device. My astonishment continued when I bought my first iPhone. Even smaller form factor and even more impressive technology was my Apple Watch, and the hearing aids are smaller still, and I've just been extremely impressed with what the hearing aids can do for me. Oticon provides multiple excellent manuals for the hearing aids. That's a striking exception to modern technology, which usually comes with a cartoonish brochure showing you perhaps how to put in a battery, how to plug it in, how to turn it on. When you buy Apple devices, they come with a very small playing card that basically says, turn it on, have a nice day. So the manuals that came with the Oticon hearing aids were a really nice exception to that. With the hearing aids, you get a standard charger. I bought an additional charger that has two interesting features. One is that it has a battery in itself. So if I travel for just a couple of days, I can take this charger without a cord to plug it in, and it's good for at least 2 or 3 nights of charging the hearing aids. It also has a lid. I have 2 cats, and while we've tried somewhat to cat-proof our house, they can still find ways to do mischief. And I wanted a device that I could put the hearing aids in with a lid so that if the cats got inquisitive, they could not bother the hearing aids. There are some minor irritations pairing the hearing aids with the iPad and the iPhone, and sometimes the 2 devices want to fight over which of them will connect to the hearing aids. Right now, I'm connected to the iPhone with the hearing aids, and so I heard the introduction to this meeting through my hearing aids connected to Zoom on the iPhone. Another minor irritation is that in order to pair the hearing aids with my television set, I need to buy a semi-expensive device from Oticon. It would seem to me that the hearing aids, which use Bluetooth, ought to be able to connect to any Bluetooth device, but apparently that's not true of connecting to a television set. So it's another $100 or so to buy an Oticon device to pair the hearing aids with a television set. With the pairing, I can listen to Zoom, I can listen to YouTube, I can make phone calls, and it's very convenient to be able to hear what's going on in the hearing aids, not have to listen to the tiny speaker on a device. The iPhone app and the iPad app are updated occasionally by Oticon, and also the firmware in the hearing aids is occasionally updated. I have an appointment tomorrow with the hearing aid provider. It's the twice-a-year routine visit, and sometimes when I go in, they will update the firmware on the hearing aids. They'll ask how I've been doing with them, any problems, how my experience is, and they will sometimes tune the hearing aids or add a different program to accommodate different settings where I'll be listening to things. The iPhone has very comprehensive accessibility settings to deal with hearing aids. So Apple has done a lot of work in setting up its devices, the iPad and the iPhone, to work very well with hearing aids. The app on the 2 devices gives me options for turning the hearing aids on and off, controlling the volume of the hearing aids. I can use the iPhone as a microphone. I can tell the hearing aids to listen to the iPhone, put the iPhone down on a table. If I'm in a restaurant, if I'm in a meeting, I can use the iPhone as the microphone to broadcast sound to the hearing aids. There are three programs that I have. The normal telecoil program will connect to a telecoil system in meeting rooms or in theaters, which allows me to hear in the hearing aids what's coming over the sound system in the venue, and that's very helpful. And the last program is the speech in noise that tells the hearing aids to focus on speech and try to remove as much possible background noise. The app has a function to find the hearing aids. If you've misplaced them, you can use the app and the Find My function to tell you where the last place is that the hearing aids were known. A minor annoyance is that for the first year or so that I was using the hearing aids, there was what Apple calls a complication, which is a little icon for an application on my watch face. And so I could tap that and go directly into the Oticon app. That for some reason that went away. And a minor annoyance that took a while to figure out is that if the hearing aids accidentally go into the telecoil setting, that can cause a little bit of buzzing. And that was puzzling for a while. Sometimes when I got in my car, I would hear a buzzing, but I finally realized that the hearing aids had somehow gone to the telecoil program, and all I had to do was switch it back to the normal program. Being able to turn the hearing aids off in the application, or even on the iPhone or from my watch, is very convenient. If I'm in a very, very noisy place, it's just one or two taps to either lower the volume or completely turn the hearing aids off. Buying the hearing aids, you'll get a recommendation to wear the hearing aids all day to train your brain to be used to what the hearing aids provide. And I've pretty much done that. Put in the hearing aids in the morning when I get up, and it's one of the last things that I do at night, take them out and put them in the charger. One interesting thing I found is when I exercise, sometimes the hearing aids just get jammed from the sweat. And so sometimes during a session on the treadmill, I will take them out and just dry things off and put them back and see if I can avoid that. There are different kinds of domes that you can put on the hearing aid. The dome is the very small plastic umbrella that fits into your ear. And there are different kinds of domes, different size domes to let you put the hearing aid as deep in your ear as you need to, and at the same time not be so small that it makes the hearing aids loose, that they'll fall out. One visit with the provider, she added very small and nearly invisible plastic tails that go in the ear to help retain the hearing aids, to keep them from falling out. Wearing hearing aids, you will occasionally need to change the domes and change the filters. Filters are a tiny little piece of plastic that sits between the hearing aid and the domes that keeps the actual mechanism, the speaker in the hearing aid, from being clogged either with debris or sweat or wax. The supplies were free during the support period. I get a pocket full of domes and filters when I go in for the routine visit, or I can just buy them on Amazon. One of the very useful tips that I got from the provider is that I can clean the domes either with microfiber or alcohol pad, and that almost removes the need to replace the domes. I can just clean them, and they turn out just as clear, just as pristine as when I first used them. But I do occasionally need to change the filters because those are so small, it's really not practical to try to clean them. A couple of uh-ohs. A while after I had the hearing aids, I was doing some outside chores. When I came in, I realized one of the hearing aids was missing. I couldn't find it, though the hearing aid app, the Find My app, said frustratingly, it's close, but it didn't tell me exactly where it was. The next day, I went to look one more time before reporting it lost and ordering a replacement, and I found it in the grass after mowing and after it had rained, and the hearing aid was still okay. So if you remember the takes a licking and keeps on ticking, from watches a very long time ago. The hearing aids are apparently pretty robust. A while after that, a hearing aid did go missing in the house. And again, the Find My app said it's close, but I never did find it. And so with the hearing aids, you get a warranty and you get a one-time replacement for each hearing aid for only $350. And so I did that. And so the conclusion is it's worth getting your hearing checked annually and saving the audiogram. You're entitled to get a copy of the audiogram after hearing test, and it's valuable to be able to track how it's changing or how it's not changing. And when the history and your experience, and perhaps you're needing to say what more and more, let that be motivation to check out hearing aids, to research buying hearing aids. Research the brand, device, provider, services, all of those options. Make sure you understand your insurance coverage, your discount. Do the good comparison shopping so that when you make a decision, you're comfortable that you've picked the right alternative. And look at the different technologies, the different form factors, because they provide different functions. They provide different improvements to your hearing. They have different visual appearances, and so it's really a matter of personal taste what you acquire. And there we are.
I'm going to leave you connected just for a little bit in case, well, if they want to see the slides, they'll see them a little bit later.
Oh, and just one more comment. I mentioned that the audiologist has been extremely helpful, extremely cooperative. and when I was doing this presentation for a user group on a weekend, I invited her to do a duet, and she prepared some slides and she did her own presentation, giving her perspective on hearing aids from the position of a provider. She's willing to do that when the presentation is not during work hours, but she's in the office right now. She's working, but I do have her slides, and I will send my slides and her slides to Judy. And so you'll be able to see the slides that I presented and information in the Doctor of Audiology presentation.
Bonus material for those people whose names match their registration names, which gives us their emails to send follow-up. All right, so Judy is collecting and getting ready for sharing questions with you. That was very, very educational. And
I have a couple of questions on, do they work with Android?
I believe so.
And
I probably should have said that. My perspective is the one brand Oticon and connecting to Apple devices, but my impression is that similar functions, identical functions, are also available with Android, but I haven't used them.
The answer to that is, I looked it up, is they work with select models, which is usually everything works with Apple because the companies, it's easy for them to work with that technology, but Android, they're all different. Do you have a Samsung Galaxy high-end? Do you have low-end? And they're a little bit different. So the word is select. J.B. Burke, the president of the Prescott Group in Arizona, says, I have a Pixel 9 Pro. That's, in my opinion, the best Android phone. Love mine. And come on, where did you go? And it's a Kirkland model, which means it's Costco, and they're used for both mic and sound out. What models hearing aids can do that with Android without having to use the phone for the mic? Gabe is strictly an everything is iPhone, and we realized we should have included something like that in the description. But The general things he talks about are great. Ellie, you're on.
I got one thing I want to do before we start that.
Okay, go.
I'm going to launch a quick survey just for information sake. So if you just quickly answer yes or no, we'd just like to get an idea of, in our little world, how many people are using. We aren't, we don't even know who you are. But just, it was a question that out of the 142 people that are here, just to get an idea. So, oh, come on, we've got a few more people can answer. It's an easy yes or no question. There we go, get to 105, we still got a few more. Right now, currently it's about 61% not using devices now and 39% that are. So good for our big group. We got people that still have pretty good ears.
Or they might think they have really good ears, but they really don't when people are talking to them.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll because we just kind of want an idea. So it's about 60-40 not using. So this workshop was really good for those 60% of people who are going to be needing this information. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to end that poll. 61-39.
And it was really interesting. With my health plan I had, which is through United Healthcare, they said, okay, you need to go get your ears checked and all that good kind of stuff. It's time. And I asked, as I would normally, without any ulterior motive or anything, could I please have a copy of the results? And the tech who did it, it was like I was the only person in the whole free world that had ever asked that. And he went kind of, let me check. And obviously the owner of the business was there, and he came back and he said, yes, you can. And he handed it to me, and I thought, interesting feedback from him when it was not, oh, sure, here it is. And I have it tucked away, and it happened to be a place I wouldn't have been caught dead getting hearing aids if I needed to. But I've got my baseline.
And just one comment on the shopping process. Insurance companies will pay for new hearing aids every certain number of years. And I think with what I have, Blue Cross Blue Shield, I think that's 5 years. And so I'm halfway through that 5-year period. And when it's time to think about replacing them, I will probably go through exactly the same process. I would likely stay with the same provider, but I would go through the same research of different brand, different model, different technology, because even in 2.5 years, when I go in and see the provider, she talks about how the new models have advanced beyond what I'm now wearing. And so after 5 years, don't just automatically get the newest model in the brand that you have been using. Do complete research, because things may have changed enough that you might want to change brands.
Very good. And I'm thinking of asking, since you mentioned Consumer Reports, and we have had at least one, if not two, presentations from that company, so to speak. And I think I'll ask one of them if they will just give us an overview on what they do at Consumer Reports. I'm a subscriber. A couple of my kids also subscribe. I guess we can't share. And I find invaluable information in almost every issue. So thank you, Gabe. That just
one comment on that. I mentioned Costco very briefly. Costco is routinely very well regarded, both for service that they provide and the devices that they provide. But I don't think you'll find a doctor of audiology. I think what you find in Costco, and it may depend on which store you go to, but I think what you find at Costco is a licensed hearing aid provider. And I'm impressed with what my doctor of audiology can do that a licensed hearing aid provider can't do. And so that's just one decision point of who you want to deal with. But the prices at Costco are good, the service is good, and they provide good devices. Everything that I've read and everything that I've heard from people who have bought at Costco.
And one of my friends is a Kaiser person, and she said all of her friends said, go to Costco. Best deal in town, best service in town. And so she did, and she's a happy camper. So I'm sure a lot of us have first-hand knowledge of things like that with other people. Ellie, you've got a question or a comment.
Yes, hello, and thank you, Gabe. So for the past 30 and more years, and it varies, at the federal and also at state level, say California, New York, there have been proposed bills to allow the insurance to cover everybody. It could be Medicare for all or single payer, but basically in New York State, there's one that also would do this, and as I said, California. So it would enable people that can't afford the prescription devices to go and get them with a small copay or such. So just wanted to let you know, to be aware, and the Physicians for National Health Plan have been working on this. Thank you.
Outstanding, and that would affect you, and it would affect me from each side of the United States. Darlene.
I've worn hearing aids for 50 years, and I know something about this subject. I just want to mention an organization called the Hearing Loss Association of America. I have been an active member since 2011. I belong to the Fort Worth chapter, even though I live in Dallas. The website is hearingloss.org. You can go on there and find how to buy a hearing aid, how to interview an audiologist, the 12 best apps for hearing aid wearers. It's like computers, more information than you would ever want to know. But they have been very helpful to me over the years. I have learned a lot. So
that's a great resource. I'll add that to the presentation. And I just had one other thought. A whole other approach to hearing loss is cochlear implants. And I've known people with cochlear implants. Those are devices that are surgically implanted. And I did not look at that. That was not indicated for me. That is available for people with very profound hearing loss who cannot be helped by traditional hearing aids.
Very good. Bill.
Hi, I have moderate hearing loss, and I had a audiologist at Northwell Health who did an audiogram that I saved. And then it's when the online devices came out, and I read a number of reviews, I think Consumer Reports, and I liked the one by Jabra. And I looked into it. They give the longest money-back guarantee. 90 days, you can try it. You don't like it, send it back. And I talked with a good audiologist at Jabra, and she helped make some adjustments. And there are many it pairs with my iPhone, and they have many different adjustments. There's one outdoors, one for restaurants, one for music. My main problem was crowded locations like restaurants. I had trouble hearing everyone, and it's worked quite well for that. I paid another $200 for a 3-year guarantee, and the total cost was $2,000. I'm sure it's not as good as the one the presenter was using, but it's pretty well serving my needs for the time being. And I really like working with good companies, and Jabra is a good company, and they've been very responsive. So I just pass that on.
Thank you. It's your turn, John.
Yes, thank you. I have two questions. One for Gabe is, do you know what the recharging feature or technique is for the ear lens that's put in by the doctor? Does the doctor have to take it out and get it recharged? And the second question is to the entire group, that I've had this similar reaction or response to Find My Hearing Aids, that it's a very imprecise result. And I'm wondering if the group anybody in the group has found that the technology has advanced to a more refined and better result. That I was not able to find hearing aids that were misplaced a number of times. It reported that it were in my house, but that's about as fine a resolution as I was able to get.
To answer the first question about the ear lens, I don't know. I don't think they have a very small nuclear reactor in them to provide lifetime power. So they probably do have to be removed periodically. And because I didn't go that route, I really just don't know how that works. I'll ask my audiologist tomorrow. I'm not sure that they handle the ear lens, but she might be able to tell me how you keep them charged, since they stay inside your ear after being put in there by a doctor.
Thank you.
And I did get a comment, I said that, from JB, remember, about he likes batteries in case he forgets to charge his hearing aids, because he can just change them out. Peter, you're on.
Yes, thank you. Couple questions. And a comments. I have constant tinnitus in one of my ears, which I understand is uncommon. And it's probably because I photographed way too many rock concerts when I was a professional photojournalist. I had been watching, I'm a fan of Jim Cramer on CNBC. He was talking about $4,000 hearing aids, which didn't work very well. And then he bought Apple iPod Pro. I know, Gabe, you said you weren't really planning on talking about anything that was purchased over the counter. But if anybody's had any experience with that, I would appreciate it. I'll wait my questions unless somebody wants to ask me a question.
Yeah, the only comment I would make on that is that I've read very positive reviews of the Apple AirPods. One disadvantage is that they don't hold a charge for an entire day. I can wear my hearing aids for 14 hours, 16 hours, and they still have a charge. When the hearing aid battery gets down to 20%, I get a little warning saying the battery is running down. I think in 2.5 years that's happened once. And what I've read is that the Apple AirPods are very powerful, very helpful, and certainly low cost compared to the kind of hearing aids that I have, but the batteries don't last all day.
Thank you, Gabe. Appreciate that.
Very good. Thomas, it's your turn.
Yes, good afternoon. This is the Tom here, and I'm following up on Peter's comments. On the 28th of October, Apple released iOS 18.1.1, and in there they had the capability of turning the AirPods Pro 2 into hearing aids. And I think on October 29th, I did that with a pair that I had purchased back in the middle of 2023. And they work marvelously. And what happens is in the health application on the Apple iPhone, there's a hearing test. If you look down the list of things that you can interact with, one of them is health, and under health there's hearing. And when you go into hearing, what you do is you take the hearing test. And when you get done with the hearing test, now that 18.1.1 has been if you've put that on your phone, it will immediately go in and set up your AirPods Pro to be hearing aids. And they're basically, even Apple says that they're good for mild to moderate hearing loss. Okay, well, I'm in the mild range. Anyway, when you do that, you can use them for large groups. And in fact, I was in a group that well, 1,000 people, and the noise level was so loud without even normal people couldn't hear who was next to them. Anyway, they worked just fine. I could hear what the people across the table were saying. The the charge lifetime is about 6 hours, and they come with the pods so that if you've got a pair of them, you can put them in the pod for about 10 minutes and it'll restore the charge. So they've been working beautifully. Actually, I'm not wearing them right now because I'm sitting in front of the computer. But otherwise, I've been using them in noisy places and they work well. If anybody has any questions about that, I have to mention, 2 weeks after I went and turned my AirPods Pro into hearing aids, I went to see the audiologist. They did the ear check, the ear test, the hearing test, and the audiologist, the medical doctor, compared the results I had gotten from the hearing test on the iPhone with the one that they had done in the sound booth. And and he said, wow, this is amazing. This is really good. And so apparently the results that you get from the hearing test on the iPhone is of medical grade usability. So and sorry to tell you guys, but you know, the AirPods Pro are about $250 a set. So if you've got mild to moderate hearing loss, it's a good option. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Kurt.
Yes, I have a question about noise reduction. Without tuning them, how well do they react as you go from one environment to another? And I know Tom is a good friend of mine, and I know he has used them in a situation where there's loud noise, and he just doesn't want to hear anything. I'm wondering how your experience is with that.
Oh, you mean the noise cancellation?
Right.
Okay.
But my question to Gabe is sort of without tuning them for a specific location, as you go about your day in your car, out in a shopping mall, out for a walk, in your home, that do you have to be fiddling with them on a regular basis to adapt them to the environment, or do they work?
They're not like glasses that will darken as you go out into the sun. I will sometimes raise or lower the volume or even turn them off if I'm in a very noisy place and I just don't want to hear it. They don't self-adjust. I'm not sure that, that what they would have to work with is the noise around you, but they wouldn't know exactly what you want them to do. But it's easy enough to tweak the volume. As I said, I can control the hearing aids from my Apple Watch. So I just tap the watch and go into the Oticon application that takes just 1 or 2 taps, and I can raise or lower the volume or turn them off if I want to. But they're not self-adjusting. They won't adjust themselves based on the noise around you. Now, again, remember that my hearing aids are 2.5 years old. So there's no telling what kind of science fiction features have been added in the 2.5 years since.
And how do they do about reducing noise?
If I lower the volume, that reduces the noise. And just to come back to the tinnitus, There is a feature that I don't have turned on because I don't have enough tinnitus to make it worthwhile. But looking at I think the manual for the Oticon app talks about you can have your provider turn on or enable the tinnitus cancellation feature, and it does something to help that problem.
Ron, you're still there. You go.
Okay. Everybody hear me all right?
Perfectly.
Okay. First, I wanted to thank you for a wonderful presentation. You had mentioned Bluetooth linking with various devices. I just wanted to comment that I have Phonak hearing aids, and they connect through Bluetooth to pretty much anything. The only catch is that you can only have two things active at a time, so you may have to exit something to clear up a channel. But otherwise, they will link up to TVs, computers, whatever.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
People are getting a lot of tips. John Stampful.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a few things because I just got new hearing aids 2 or 3 months ago, and I did a lot of research myself. The reason I got the new hearing aids, I noticed that when I was getting together with my family and we were in a crowded room and a bunch of people talking, that I could no longer even distinguish with the hearing aids that I've had for years, that I would start to hesitate to interact with people because I couldn't understand what they were saying. I also found that when my wife would say things, I didn't understand the word. I thought she said, "I'm upset," and she said, "Namaste." That's a bad confusion. So my high frequency had degraded so that I was no longer able to interpret certain words. But what I found doing the research, and now I'm going to tell you a few things. Thanks so much, Gabe, for bringing this up. We actually had a meeting of my club that covered a few of these things. It's a computer club, so we talked about Bluetooth. I just got new ReSound Nexia 7s. Bluetooth has just introduced the latest Bluetooth version, version 5. And when you get version 5.3 and 5.4, you can get what's called low energy, LE, Bluetooth. And amongst that, you can get Bluetooth LE audio. And that's what the latest hearing aids would have. Not all of them have it yet. Only Phonak and ReSound have the newest Bluetooth yet. And this is also being introduced into your computers. It took 15 years for the hearing aid industry to get this introduced so that the computer industry finally went along because they introduced something called Auracast, Auracast. Auracast is something which would be useful to everyone, not just hearing aid people, but the Auracast comes with the Bluetooth LE audio. With Auracast, and here's one of the things about the way it works, if you were in, say, a sports bar and they have all these televisions up, you can't hear one television, so they have no sound. Maybe they put up closed captions. With Auracast, it will be like there will be a signal on the screen that says, this one is on this Auracast channel. This one is on this Auracast channel. And you will be able to select using your smartphone app which Auracast comes to your hearing aids so that the person next to you can select a different television's audio. So when the audio starts coming, when Auracast is put into the TV sets, you'll be able to stream directly from that television. Right now, Samsung 4K TVs have that Auracast feature already built in. Another feature that comes with the Bluetooth LE audio is that it has multi-stream. Now, people have already talked about this. With multi-stream, you can connect and receive audio from multiple devices simultaneously, such as your phone and a room's audio system. In addition, you can have the noise canceling capabilities applied while you're getting streaming from multiple devices. So your hearing aids have just gotten a huge increase in capability. Now, my hearing aids, this has to do with the noise canceling and other things. My hearing aids have 2 microphones in each hearing aid. They use the 2 microphones to be able to tell the direction from which sound is coming, so that they block out, the programming is such that they block out what's coming from behind me and can focus on the sound coming from the person in front of me that's speaking to me. So the noise canceling is now adjusting live. I don't have to touch anything to have that happen. I was walking with my wife. She was on one side of me and she was talking to me and I heard it, and it was amplified into my left ear. She switched sides and was walking on my right. The amplification switched to my right hearing aid automatically because it could tell where the sound was coming from. So if you're looking for new hearing aids, now I know nobody, just like Windows 10 to Windows 11, nobody's rushing out to buy a new computer necessarily. But when you go for hearing aids, not all of them have got Bluetooth LE audio yet, but the ones you want will have that. Now, we talked about rechargeable versus batteries. I was using 312 batteries before. They lasted 6 days. On my new hearing aids, I got a slightly larger battery, a 13. It now lasts 12 days. 12 days without having to change the battery. Having to charge it every night and having something that may not last a day was not appealing to me. And the new batteries did not make my hearing aids any significantly larger than the ones that I had before, slightly larger. I use an iPhone. The new Bluetooth in the hearing aids has a much longer range than the 30 feet that your old Bluetooth had. Phonak hearing aids used classic Bluetooth. Other brands did not use classic Bluetooth. They did not have as much Bluetooth capability. With Bluetooth low energy and Bluetooth LE audio, you've got almost 600 feet of Bluetooth range and the ability to find your hearing aids the same way that you can find an AirPad. You can get it down to within feet. So if you lose it in your house, stuck in a couch, you should be able to find it and make it beep. I got my hearing aids from Beltone because that was my insurance company allows me to replace my hearing aids every 3 years. They completely covered it. They sent me to Beltone. I started out by getting a Beltone hearing aid that was supposed to be equivalent to the Nexia 7s, but I switched to the ReSound Nexia 7s because they had the new Bluetooth LE audio. If you get it from Beltone, you can only get serviced by Beltone. If you get a ReSound Nexia 7 or any other brand from the Beltone provider, you can get serviced by any audiologist. So if you go to an audiologist or an ENT and get a hearing spectrogram, you can take that to Costco and get Costco to fill that if you happen to want to use Costco hearing aids. But Costco keeps switching the brands, and their hearing aids do not currently have the Bluetooth LE audio. I found I had tinnitus. Just using hearing aids significantly reduces the experience of tinnitus. And the final thing that I wanted to mention was that the new hearing aids that I have are sealed hearing aids, so that if you can find a Hearing Week by Anthony Bolavia, who's interviewing Laurel Christensen, the vice president of Resound, about the new Nexia hearing aids. And he describes the fact that he, in fact, went swimming with his hearing aids in. And just as somebody mentioned that Gabe mentioned that he found his hearing aids in the grass, the new hearing aids can be sealed against moisture, which is a significant problem. But I've taken a lot of time, but there's a lot of new features. If you're up for new hearing aids, you want to get the Bluetooth LE audio. And if you're getting a new computer, you want to make sure that it has the Bluetooth version 5.3 or 5.4. You should be able to get a plug-in, a USB plug-in that would be able to be used with other stuff if you already have a Windows 11 computer that doesn't support, that the hardware of Bluetooth doesn't support the Bluetooth LE audio. But you also, if you're buying a new computer, you want to look for that feature. Sorry if I took a lot of time. I had a lot of research too.
I want to come back to something that you said. If you're wearing hearing aids and you find that sound is being muffled and you're mistaking upset for namaste, make sure you're cleaning or replacing the domes and the filter on a regular enough basis, because if the domes get dirty, if the filter gets clogged, the hearing aids will stop being effective.
Thanks, John, for all the information you gave us. And as you were saying that, Gabe, I was thinking that you got to clean your ears, but I guess you got to clean your extra ears in that case with the filter and everything. Linda, you're on.
Bill was next, but he got kicked to the back of the line. So,
okay, I thought that was his choice.
No.
Bill?
I just have a question. I mean, everyone has talked about.
Bill, got a question?
Yes. What about people that enjoy music? Is there an issue with what kind of hearing aids you need, or is that something you just have to give up?
Why would you give it up? Why would the hearing aids be a hindrance to enjoying?
I don't know. That's my question. Is there a problem? I mean, like going to concerts, orchestral concerts, and things like that. Does the hearing aid cause issues with hearing the music?
I don't see why it would, and I've not read anything about that.
I mean, what I'm asking, Gabe, do you have any experience with that?
No. I mean, I listen to some music sometimes in the car or things that I play on YouTube, and I don't see why listening to music would be different from
like going to a concert. I guess that hasn't been made clear to me. That's why I'm asking.
I've not seen anything indicating that it's a problem in listening to music. But again, I don't have any experience on that other than I listen to speech, I listen to TV, I listen to movies, I listen to music, and everything just works.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess part of it was that earlier you kind of said you try to avoid large groups and big events.
Oh, no, my comment was that some people's hearing has been damaged by over many, many years going to many, many loud concerts. And my point was that I didn't really work any place that was noisy and did not spend or misspend my youth sitting next to gigantic rock concert speakers. It wasn't that I avoid it. I just don't feel that my hearing was damaged by either noisy workplaces or lots of concerts.
Well, I guess I was asking, it's like if you went to a band concert or a symphony concert, if all the instruments playing, if that caused an issue with you trying to listen, was it something that you would enjoy or something that you would no longer enjoy, was my question.
I see John Stample's hand raised. Do you have an answer to that because you've been to a lot of concerts?
It's not exactly about a lot of concerts, but when I first got these, let me give a background. If you put on pink glasses, initially you notice the pink. Very shortly, you stop noticing the colored glasses at all. Your brain accommodates. When I first put in the hearing aids, they were very shrill because they enhanced my high frequency hearing. What I had been hearing previously as music from the television or wherever I was listening sounded all different, just like putting on those pink glasses. It took a little while for my brain to start adapting the same way. It wasn't exactly the same amount of time as with pink glasses, a few days, a couple of weeks. And it was like, I said to the audiologist, I didn't know that the music sounded like that. I had to train my brain. This is what it really sounds like, because I had lost the ability over time. So if I understand your question, you asked, does it affect the way you hear in concerts or things like that? Yes, it does. It tries to give you back more realistic sound. And it takes a little while to get used to it. That's why, as Gabe said, it takes a few months for your brain to get used to all of the different sounds and decide, oh, this is normal. So people who don't wear their hearing aids all the time because they think they're uncomfortable or something like that do themselves a real disservice. You have to put them in and get used to them. And then your brain will adjust and know that this is what things sound like. Unfortunately, as your hearing gets worse over time, you don't notice, because it's like Babe and the Blue Ox, picking up the thing a little bit at a time. It changes a little bit, you don't notice. I had to go back when I noticed that I couldn't hear words. I went back and I had my audiologist do a test where he read a list of 25 words with my hearing aids out and asked me what the word was. Then we put the hearing aids back in and he read another list of words to compare. I got 96% correct the second time with the hearing aids in. I only got about 25% correct without the hearing aids. And that's of him speaking words. Same speaker, same environment. I couldn't understand the words correctly. Your brain gets used to it. Thanks for giving me a chance to say that.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. That answers my question.
Okay. Linda, you're on.
And before I let her go on, Gabe's going to be needing to leave. So we need to have just specific questions for Gabe. We will gladly receive your comments and discussions at our end open time after our second presentation. But Gabe needs to hear any kind of questions specifically for him because we need to move on. So Linda.
Linda, and it's going to end with John. let's see, do I have all that correct, my John? Yeah, and Gabe is not going to be here for all Q&A. He has another.
That's what I said. We will be glad to hear their comments.
Right, okay, comments only at the
Right,
end.
at the end. But let's get questions for Gabe so he can leave and Sue can get on to her presentation.
Right. Or if you would like, you could send your comment or your question in the chat and I can send them to him, and at his leisure, he can answer them for you. Linda, you're on. Hello. Moving on to Lori.
Hi there. I do have a question for Gabe. I wonder if the True Hearing is available across the country. That was one of my questions. And the other questions is, do you need an iPhone to lower and raise the volume? Or is there another way to do that?
Yeah, True Hearing is national. I think the people that I was talking to are based in Utah. The ad that I saw had an 800 number. And so your location and their location really doesn't matter. The only issue with True Hearing is that it doesn't work with all insurance companies. And that's part of what I don't fully understand. But a friend of mine, suggested he deal with True Hearing, and it turned out that True Hearing and his insurance company don't get along. In terms of iPhone to raise and lower volume, no, certainly you can do the same thing with Android. And in fact, you can do the same thing on the hearing aids themselves, but it's a lot easier to use an app than to try and fiddle with the tiny switches on the devices. But certainly raising and lowering volume, Android, same as iPhone.
Oh, terrific. Thank you. And I also have heard that there definitely is an issue with music because I work in the audio industry, and that was the first thing that they brought to my attention. But I haven't experienced it. I've just heard from other people that it seems to be an issue, but I don't really know what the issue actually is. So film at 11, I guess, on that one.
Thank you. Carl. Unmute, please. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I was interrupted during your presentation, so I'm not sure it was Gabe or John who mentioned that there is a software that you could use to test your hearing, and I have an Android phone, so I wondered if it relates to Android, because I heard it mentioned about iPhone.
I think what was mentioned is that with the new Apple AirPod devices, which can be used as hearing aids, they need to work with an iPhone for the hearing test. And I just don't know whether Android has an equivalent for hearing test.
Okay, well, I was just curious because I have an Android and I was hoping that there was something that we could use. I have good hearing in one ear and the other ear is really bad. And so I hadn't found a necessity to get a hearing aid yet, but I was curious about the software. So thank you. Good presentation.
Mustafa.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Gabriel. That was a good presentation. It was very informative for me. I appreciate that. Actually, one of the concern, and I have heard this one from our local hearing loss association I don't have a hearing loss problem, but I have gone. The concern is installing the hearing aid on your devices, on your earplug. There is some kind of privacy issue with the manufacturer who provide that. And also, if you use our telephone or gadget to hear that, they may collect information about us. That has been, and also they have been a demonstration. I'm not sure. Hearing Loss Association of America might have that information. I guess I haven't studied that myself. This is something I just want to mention because there is a cyber issue because we are using electronic and then we have artificial intelligence coming in. That's going to be a disaster. That's number one. Number two, the bill was having issues about that going to concert and here. they may be a way. Most audio churches and places like a music center, they have the hearing loop devices that you can borrow from them, and also then you can adjust the sound to the hearing that you want. But I think, in my opinion, the better way might be to have a voice noise cancellation, and then what you do, it is with the Bluetooth is connected to hearing loop of that rooms that you are in, and then you can adjust to your desired level. So that is what I know at this time. I don't have all of the information I have from the past. So that's another issues. I know Gabriel wants to go. I have other comments and also questions to make. I probably can raise it later.
You can send those comments to me.
Oh, I have to write it down. I don't have it ready here.
Oh, I know. John, you are our last question.
Thank you. And Gabe, if you need to go, go ahead. This is not directed necessarily at you, but I wanted to respond to Bill James' question, and that is that there's two features of sound that are significant to his inquiry. One is that the hearing aids will correct the frequency response. That's the high to low tones. And most people have a loss of high frequency tones. And that other gentleman was talking about that when you have the actual tone, it can be a surprise to someone that's not has had a history of hearing loss, so that they've never heard those high tones. That's frequency. And it's the same. Another example of that is the bass and treble controls on your audio equipment, that you can turn up or down the various tones and boost those or attenuate those. A second component of this listening experience is dynamic range, and that I can best example. It has to do with the loudness range of perception. So that if someone was whispering or shouting the same information at the same frequency, that would be an example of a wide dynamic range. And in a lot of recorded music, it's compressed so that the music shows up at the same volume. Orchestral music can sometimes have a very wide dynamic range, and I don't know if the hearing aids have any ability to deal with the dynamic range and either compress or expand. But that's an example of an aspect of listening to music. That's all I have. Thank you.
Outstanding.
I guess my comment on that would be, if you're shopping for hearing aids, mention concerns such as listening to music to your provider, because I suspect that the different brands and different models have different strengths. I'm not sure whether I'm pretty sure that my hearing aids, or the app that I use, does not include a frequency equalizer where you can raise and lower high level frequency, low frequency to match what you're listening to. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's coming or even available on hearing aids that are out since the 2.5 years ago that I bought mine.
And Gabe, I have a question. You talked about a discussion on YouTube. If you have the URL for that, could you put it in the chat box for me so I can pass it on?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Okay, Mike, you want to flesh out your request a little bit, and I will get it to Gabe. And hopefully that'll jog his memory about every single thing he talked about.
Oh, I'm looking back at my slides. One of the early slides mentions Dr. Cliff Olson on YouTube. I don't have a URL for that, but I suspect if you search Dr. Cliff Olson hearing, you'll come up with it.
Thank you so much. This was an excellent presentation. I'm glad you outstandingly gave it today. It was just way cool. Everybody learned. It's one of those teaching presentations that you learn so much that you can't believe that you're going to have to remember all of it, but they're going to be getting your slides any questions or comments that are in the chat box that you didn't get around to. And just way cool. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback, and you deserve some credit, Judy, for patiently over a number of years encouraging me to give online presentations, which I resisted. And so you lured me here today, so you get credit too.